The sky over the Kansas warehouse yard was a flat, heavy gray as I sat across from my boss's cluttered desk watching him lean back in his chair with that smug look he always wore when he thought he was in control. 5 years of keeping his trucking company afloat, managing every route, every payroll, every supplier payment reduced to this one moment. He tossed my latest performance review aside without even opening it. "Rhonda, I've been thinking," he said, voice dripping with fake regret. "You're good at what you do, but honestly, you're just not on my level. This company needs someone with real vision at the top, not just someone handling the day-to-day grind. I'm letting you go. Effective immediately." Not on his level. The words hit like a slap, but I didn't flinch. I'd heard his bragging for years how he was the big entrepreneur, the deal maker, while I was the one who actually made sure drivers got paid on time, trucks stayed on schedule, and clients kept renewing contracts. I'd poured everything into this place, even risked my own savings to keep it running when banks turned him down. But I kept my face neutral the way I'd learned after too many disappointing meetings. "I understand," I said quietly, standing up. "Thank you for the opportunity." He was already turning to his computer, dismissing me like yesterday's paperwork. I walked out past the rows of semi-trucks parked in the lot, past the dispatch office, where drivers were loading up for weekend runs. My name wouldn't be on any schedule anymore. In the parking lot, I sat in my pickup for a long minute, staring at the dusty dashboard. The woman in the rearview mirror didn't look devastated. She looked calm, almost calculating. I started the engine and made one decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to help him clean up the mess he was about to create. Boss fired me for not being on his level, so I drove away. 2 days later, he called 88 times after realizing I am the company's sole creditor. Arrogance comes with a heavy price. Now I am the one who decides that tyrant's fate. Before I tell you exactly how it all fell apart for him, you might be wondering why so many hardworking people end up in situations where their biggest contributions are taken for granted until it's too late for the ones taking credit. If you've ever felt undervalued or dismissed at work despite carrying the load, this story might hit close to home. Hit that like button if you're ready for some real justice, and subscribe with notifications on. I share a new, no-nonsense career story every week that could shift how you handle toxic bosses and protect your worth. Now back to that Friday afternoon. As I pulled out of the gravel lot onto the Kansas highway, the wide fields stretching empty on both sides, my phone was still silent. I knew it wouldn't stay that way for long. The company he'd just declared too small for me, I'd kept it alive with more than just hard work. 2 years earlier, when everything was on the verge of collapse, I'd put up $350,000 of my own money, the inheritance from my parents, plus every penny I'd saved. He signed the promissory note himself, promising to pay it back with interest over 5 years. He never thought I'd actually call it in. The drive home felt different, lighter somehow. For the first time in years, I wasn't rushing to check emails or fix someone else's emergency. The highway stretched ahead, and I cranked up the radio, letting the wind through the open window whip my hair around. Whatever chaos was coming, he'd face it without me. Little did he know the real storm was just starting. My name is Rhonda Klein, and until that Friday, I was the person who kept Roth Trucking running like clockwork. I'm the type who remembers every detail: route, numbers, fuel costs, per mile driver, preferences for certain loads, because that's how I was raised. Growing up on a small farm outside Wichita, I learned early that if you didn't plan ahead, the harvest could fail, bills could pile up, and everything you'd worked for could vanish overnight. We weren't rich. My parents worked the land from dawn to dusk, and I was the oldest of three, always helping with chores, tracking expenses in a spiral notebook because we couldn't afford fancy software. That habit stuck. When I started at Roth Trucking 7 years ago, the place was already struggling. It was a small intrastate operation, 28 trucks hauling grain machinery parts and retail goods across Kansas and into neighboring states. The owner, Marvin Roth, had big ideas but zero follow-through on the numbers side. I came in as a dispatcher, but within months I was handling payroll accounts, payable fuel cards, compliance with state regulations, everything that kept the wheels turning. Marvin liked being out front, shaking hands with clients at the co-ops and warehouses talking about expansion. He was good at that part. But when it came to actually paying drivers on time or negotiating better rates with fuel suppliers, he relied on me completely. He'd say things like, "Rhonda, you're a lifesaver," during reviews, followed by a small bonus that never quite reflected the overtime I put in. I didn't mind at first. The job paid steady, and it let me provide for my daughter without too much stress. Kendall was only 3 when I started there, and being a single mom meant every dollar counted. Then came the crisis 2 years ago. Fuel prices spiked, a couple of big clients switched to cheaper competitors, and the bank called in a line of credit Marvin had personally guaranteed. The company was weeks from missing payroll drivers, threatening to walk trucks sitting idle because we couldn't afford maintenance. Marvin came to me in a panic one evening after everyone else had gone home. He laid it all out, how the business he'd built from nothing was about to fold, how he'd lose the warehouse, the trucks, everything. I listened, running the numbers in my head. The shortfall was $350,000, enough to cover overdue bills, get current with suppliers, and keep operations going for 6 months until new contracts kicked in. I had the money. My parents had passed a few years earlier, leaving the farm sold and the proceeds split between us kids. I'd been careful, investing most of it safely. That night, I made the decision that tied me tighter to the company than any employment contract ever could. I agreed to lend Roth Trucking the full amount, personal loan promissory note signed by Marvin himself with interest and a 5-year repayment schedule. There was a clause allowing me to call the full balance due with 30 days' notice in case of material changes like key personnel shifts or default. Marvin was relieved, promising I'd never regret it. "This makes us partners in a real way, Rhonda," he said, shaking my hand like we'd just closed $1 million deal. Things stabilized after that. New clients came on board, cash flow improved, and repayments started slowly, but they started. I kept managing the finances, optimizing routes to cut costs, negotiating with insurers for better rates on the fleet. Drivers stayed loyal because they got paid on time every time. Clients renewed because deliveries were reliable. I arrived early most mornings, reviewing load boards before the sun was fully up, making sure every truck was assigned efficiently. Evenings, I'd reconcile accounts, chase overdue invoices, prepare reports Marvin could present as his own. He took the credit during client lunches, but I was fine with that, as long as the checks cleared and I could pick Kendall up from school without worry. The work became my routine, my second home. I knew every driver's family situation, every client's quirks, every shortcut that saved miles on a run from Topeka to Dodge City. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine, and it kept a lot of people employed. By the time I pulled into my driveway that evening, the house lights were already on. I turned off the engine, grabbed my bag, and walked up the steps. When I opened the front door, Kendall was sitting at the kitchen table, surrounded by textbooks and colored pencils, working on her homework. "Hey, Mom," Kendall said, looking up from her math worksheet with that bright smile that always made long days worth it. She had her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, a few strands escaping around her face. I dropped my bag by the door and kicked off my boots. "Hey, kiddo, how was school?" She shrugged, erasing a pencil mark. "Okay. We had a substitute in science, and he let us watch a video about volcanoes. It was cool." She paused, tilting her head. "You're home earlier than usual." I walked over and ruffled her hair. "Yeah, I am. Felt like spending more time with you tonight." Her eyes lit up. "Really, can we make tacos? I'm starving." "Absolutely," I said, rolling up my sleeves. "Let's do it." We moved around the kitchen together. She pulled ground beef from the fridge while I chopped onions and tomatoes. The familiar routine felt good, something we hadn't done enough of lately. I'd been coming home late too often, heating up leftovers or ordering pizza because I was still answering emails from the office. As the meat browned in the pan, Kendall chattered about her day, how her friend Mia got in trouble for talking during reading time, how recess dodgeball got intense. I listened, stirring the seasoning and asking questions that kept her going. For the first time in months, my mind wasn't split between her stories and some urgent route change back at the warehouse. We sat at the table with our plates piled high, shells, crunchy cheese melting. She took a big bite and grinned through a mouthful. "These are the best, Mom." "Secret ingredient is being home on time," I teased. She laughed, then got quiet for a second. "Are you okay? You seem different. Kids notice everything." I set my taco down. "I'm actually better than okay, honey. Work's been taking up too much space lately, and today I decided it's time to take some of that space back for us." She nodded slowly. "Like when you used to come to my games?" "Yeah, exactly like that." I reached across and squeezed her hand. "I've missed a lot, and I don't want to miss any more." After dinner, we cleaned up together. She washed, I dried, then settled on the couch with a bowl of ice cream to watch one of her favorite shows. She leaned against me, head on my shoulder, and I felt the tension from the day melt away. No checking my phone every 5 minutes. No mentally running through tomorrow's load schedule. When the credits rolled, I glanced at the work phone in my bag. It had buzzed a couple times on the drive home, but I'd ignored it. Now, sitting there in the quiet living room, I made another choice. I pulled it out, powered it completely off, and set it face down on the counter. No more emergencies tonight. No jumping in to fix whatever Marvin was fumbling. I'd spent years being the reliable one, the person everyone called when something went wrong. But after today, that stopped. I even opened my calendar on my personal phone and canceled the weekend getaway I'd booked months ago, a quiet cabin a few hours away that I'd planned as my first real break-in forever. Instead, I'd be right here watching what happened when the company had to run without its safety net. Kendall yawned and stretched. "Can we bake cookies tomorrow?" "You bet," I promised, hugging her tight. "Chocolate chip extra chips." She beamed and headed upstairs to get ready for bed. I tucked her in, reading an extra chapter from the book on her nightstand, listening to her breathing slow as she drifted off. Back downstairs, I poured myself a glass of water and sat at the kitchen table for a minute, enjoying the silence. Then my personal phone vibrated, once a text from a number I recognized. It was Cole, one of the longtime drivers. "Hey, Rhonda, quick question. Payroll deposits usually hit by now on Fridays, right? Mine hasn't shown up yet. Everything okay?" I stared at the screen. Payroll was automated through software only I had full admin access to. Marvin had the basics, but he'd never bothered learning the details. I typed back a simple reply. "I'm no longer with the company. You'll need to check with Marvin." Sent. Then I turned notifications off on that phone too. By late evening, the phone buzzed more frequently. The notifications kept coming through the night, but with the sound off, I slept better than I had in years. Saturday morning arrived quiet. No alarm pulling me out of bed at 5 to check weekend loads. I made pancakes for breakfast, and Kendall ate 2 stacks while telling me about a school project on Kansas history. By midday, my personal phone showed a string of missed calls and texts from work numbers I knew well. Drivers were the first wave. One voicemail from a guy who'd been with the company 8 years. "Rhonda payroll didn't hit. Bank says insufficient funds." "What's going on? I got bills due Monday." Another driver left a longer message, voice rising. "This ain't right. We run our asses off all week and now no direct deposit. If this doesn't get fixed today, I'm parking the truck and looking elsewhere." Word spread fast in a small fleet. Texts came in groups. One driver forwarding my reply from the night before to others, asking if anyone knew what was happening. They were angry, confused, some outright threatening to quit if pay didn't show up soon. Suppliers started calling too. The fuel vendor left a clipped voicemail. Your account is past due again. No more credit until the balance is cleared. Trucks won't fuel up Monday without payment. Then came the clients. A big grain co-op we'd hauled for steadily sent an email I saw forwarded by a dispatcher still trying to fill routes. Due to unreliable scheduling this week, we're rerouting tomorrow's loads to another carrier. We'll reevaluate the contract next quarter. Another client, a machinery parts distributor out of Salina, called directly and left a message. 2 trucks no-showed today. We can't have delays like this during harvest season. Consider this formal notice. We're suspending shipments until reliability is proven. Marvin was trying to handle it all himself. I could picture him in the office barking orders at the remaining staff, fumbling through the payroll software he'd never fully learned. One voicemail from him came in around 2 o'clock tone, still trying to sound authoritative. Rhonda, we need to talk. Some mix-up with the bank. Come in and sort this out. An hour later, another. Drivers are blowing up my phone. Just tell me the quick fix for the payroll run. By 4, his messages shifted less command, more frustration. Clients are pulling loads. This is getting out of hand. Call me back. He tried different approaches. One voicemail almost pleading. Look, maybe I was hasty yesterday. We can work this out. You're the best at keeping things smooth. Then angry. You're really going to let this fall apart over one conversation? People depend on these jobs. The calls kept piling up, 10 by evening, then 15. He left gaps of 20 minutes, then 10. Like he couldn't stop himself from redialing. Each message showed him grasping at solutions that weren't there without the systems I'd built and maintained. A warehouse foreman texted, "Boss is losing it, yelling at everyone, but nothing's getting dispatched right. Trucks sitting empty." I read them all but didn't respond. The company was running exactly as it would with only Marvin's involvement. No buffers, no backups, no one stepping in to patch the holes. Drivers talked about jumping to competitors offering sign-on bonuses. Clients weren't waiting. They had deadlines and alternatives. Payroll missing on a weekend meant real hardship rent payments, bouncing groceries on credit cards with high interest. I'd prevented that chaos for years by staying on top of cash flow, shifting funds when needed, calling in favors with banks. Now it hit all at once. Marvin's last call that night came after 9, voice tight and tired. "Rhonda, please, just walk me through it. I can't figure out the transfer codes." I let it go to voicemail too. The screen showed over 30 missed calls total that day, most from him or the main office line. The next morning, I packed a picnic basket and drove Kendall to the local park. Kendall swung high on the playground, laughing as she pumped her legs while I sat on a nearby bench with a sandwich and my phone in hand. The park was busy for a Sunday, families grilling, kids running around, but my attention kept drifting to the screen. Notifications had exploded overnight. Marvin's calls dominated the list. By noon, the counter showed 47 missed from his number alone. He wasn't leaving spaces anymore. Some came minutes apart. I finally tapped play on a few voicemails, volume low, so Kendall wouldn't hear. The first ones from early morning were clipped demands. "Rhonda, pick up. We lost another client. I need those contract files." Then escalation. "Drivers are refusing to roll out tomorrow without pay assurances. Fix this." By mid-morning, his tone cracked. One message voice hoarse. "Half the fleet is threatening to park permanently. Bank froze the accounts because of overdrafts. How do I unfreeze them?" Another background noise of shouting. "Suppliers won't release parts for repairs. Trucks are breaking down on the road. Call me back, damn it." The desperation built. Around lunch, a rambling one. "I admit it, I can't do this without you. Come back Monday, we'll talk salary, whatever you want." He tried bargaining. "Name your price. Bonus, equity, anything." Then panic set in fully. One voicemail after another, timestamps closer together. "Clients are terminating contracts left and right. We're bleeding money every hour." A later one almost whispering. "Personal loans are calling too. They heard rumors. Please, Rhonda." The total climbed fast, 60 by late afternoon, 70 by dusk. He switched phones at one point, maybe hoping I'd answer an unknown number. Some messages were just heavy breathing before hanging up, others repeated pleas. Then came the call from a number I recognized as his home line. It was Ellen Roth, his wife. Her voice shook right from the start. "Rhonda, this is Ellen." Marvin's beside himself. He hasn't slept. The kids are asking why Dad's yelling at the phone all day. She paused, sniffling. "We might lose the house if the business goes under. The trucks are financed through his personal credit. Please talk to him. Whatever happened Friday, we can fix it. Our family's counting on this." Another message from her minutes later. "He says you have the power to stop this. For old time's sake, for everyone who works there." I let them all pile up. Marvin hit 80 by evening, then 88 before he finally stopped around midnight. The last voicemail was barely coherent, voice-breaking words tumbling. "I was wrong, completely wrong. I thought I built this alone, but it's falling apart without you. I'm begging now. Save us." I listened to that one twice, sitting in the quiet living room after Kendall was asleep. His arrogance from Friday had vanished, replaced by raw fear. The man who'd dismissed me as not his equal now sounded broken, realizing too late how much he'd depended on what I'd brought to the table. The phone screen glowed with the final tally. 88 calls in 2 days. No texts anymore, just relentless ringing, then voicemails spilling over. I set the phone aside and went to bed, mind clear. The consequences were hitting exactly as expected. A few days later, the letter from my attorney went out. The certified letter demanded full repayment within 30 days. Marvin's response came fast, a text begging for a face-to-face. Against my better judgment, I agreed to one meeting neutral ground. We settled on a small diner downtown, the kind with cracked vinyl booths and bottomless coffee. I arrived first, chose a corner table, and ordered black coffee. Marvin walked in 10 minutes late, looking nothing like the confident boss from a week earlier. His shirt was wrinkled, eyes, bloodshot hair, uncombed. He slid into the seat across from me without a word at first. "Thanks for coming," he finally said, voice low. "I know I don't deserve it." I sipped my coffee and waited. He leaned forward, hands clasped tight. "Rhonda, I screwed up. Badly. Saying you weren't on my level, that was stupid arrogance. I see it now. The place is crumbling without you." He pulled out a folder, sliding it across. "New contract. Double your old salary, full benefits, profit share. Come back as operations director. Report only to me, but with real authority this time." I didn't touch the folder. "That's not why we're here." His face fell. "Okay. Whatever title, whatever pay. Just name it. This isn't about money or titles, Marvin." I kept my tone even. "You dismissed years of work in one sentence. Acted like the company ran on your vision alone when I was the one holding it together." He winced. "I know. I panicked when things got tight before, took your help for granted after. But we can fix this. Extend the loan. Give me 6 months. I'll get new contracts, turn it around." I shook my head. "The note is callable. I'm exercising that clause." His eyes widened. "You'd sink the whole business, dozens of drivers out of work, families depending on those paychecks. Those families were at risk the moment you decided you didn't need me. You made the choice, not me." He tried another angle. "Ellen asked me to tell you she's sorry too. We're looking at losing everything. The house, college funds. Have some compassion." I met his gaze directly. "Compassion is what I showed when I lent that money in the first place. Risked my own security to save your company. You repaid it by deciding I wasn't good enough to keep around." He rubbed his face, voice dropping. "I was threatened. You knew more than I did, fixed problems faster. Made me look small. That's on me. At least you admit it now." I pushed the folder back. "But admission doesn't change the terms. The loan is due." He stared at the table for a long moment. If you force repayment, we'll have to file bankruptcy. Trucks get repossessed, clients gone for good. Is that what you want? What I want is to stop carrying people who undervalue the load. You've had time to prepare, sell assets, find investors, downsize. Instead, you spent it calling non-stop. Marvin's shoulders slumped. There's no quick fix without that money staying in play. Then you'll face the consequences of running a business on one person's contribution while pretending otherwise. He tried one last push. Partners then? Real ones. Split ownership. You deserve it. No, I'm done partnering with someone who only sees my worth when it's gone. The waitress refilled my coffee. Marvin waved her off. Silence stretched between us. He looked defeated, searching for words that weren't there. Finally, he nodded once. I get it. Can't blame you. I stood, leaving cash for my drink. The attorney handles everything from here. No more calls. He didn't follow me out. I walked to my truck feeling no triumph, just closure. A few weeks later, word came through old contacts. Former drivers kept me updated through casual texts, no details asked, just facts shared. Roth Trucking filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy less than a month after the demand letter. Liquidation meant everything sold off to pay creditors, starting with secured ones. Repo trucks showed up at the warehouse one morning. Finance companies took back 18 of the 28 semis, chains rattling as they were hooked and hauled away. The remaining few went to auction, fetching far less than owed. Office equipment followed, computers, desks, even the old coffee machine. The building lease got terminated early, landlords seizing what was left for back rent. Payroll for the final weeks never materialized. Employees filed claims with the state wage board, but recovery took months and covered only a fraction. Marvin tried fighting on another front. He sued me for wrongful termination, claiming the firing lacked cause and breached some implied contract. His lawyer argued emotional distress, lost income, damage to reputation. The case didn't last long. Kansas courts upheld at-will employment strongly, no reason needed to end a non-contract position. Discovery showed no written promises of continued employment, no discrimination alleged. My attorney filed a motion to dismiss. The judge granted it with prejudice. Marvin owed court costs on top of everything else. Countersuit followed for frivolous filing and unpaid legal fees on the note enforcement. He settled quietly to avoid more public loss. Personal fallout hit harder, since Marvin had signed personal guarantees on fleet financing, and some vendor lines creditors came after his assets. The family home went into foreclosure proceedings after missed mortgage payments. They downsized to a rental apartment on the edge of town. Ellen took a part-time job at a retail store. Their kids switched to public schools mid-year. Credit scores tanked, making new loans impossible. Former colleagues mentioned seeing Marvin at job fairs, resume in hand, looking for management roles that never called back. One driver who got hired elsewhere told me the warehouse lot stayed empty for weeks before a new logistics firm leased part of it. Roth Trucking signs came down, replaced by generic banners. The name vanished from industry directories. No dramatic scenes reached me, no confrontations, no pleas. Just steady erosion of what he'd built on borrowed stability. Suppliers blacklisted him, banks flagged the file. Starting over meant proving reliability from scratch without the cushion he'd dismissed. I stayed out of it completely. Attorney updates came by email, judgments entered, assets distributed, case closed. The loan got repaid partially through liquidation proceeds, the rest written off in bankruptcy discharge. Enough came back to cover what I'd risked plus interest. Word spread in local circles as a cautionary tale: undervalue key people at your peril. Some ex-employees landed better gigs with sign-on bonuses. Others struggled shorter term but moved on. Marvin's arrogance had real costs: business gone, financial security, shattered reputation, damaged beyond quick repair. In a small industry like Kansas, trucking news traveled fast. A few months later, I stood in our new house. The new place was smaller, but ours outright, no mortgage hanging over us. I turned the spare bedroom into an office simple desk by the window overlooking a quiet street. With the bankruptcy settlement and careful planning, I had enough seed money to start something on my own terms. Klein Logistics began as freelance consulting, helping small carriers optimize routes, negotiate fuel contracts, streamline compliance. Word spread among former clients and drivers who'd moved on. Within weeks, I had steady gigs redesigning dispatch systems for a regional hauler, setting up payroll automation for another. No big fleet, no warehouse, just me, my laptop, and years of hard-earned knowledge. I kept hours flexible, blocking afternoons for Kendall's school events or whatever came up. We took weekend drives to state parks, something we'd talked about but never done before. She joined a soccer league. I coached when I could, cheering from the sidelines without rushing off to answer work crises. Jade, my sister, came over most Sundays. We'd cook big meals, roast chicken, fresh salads, while catching up properly for the first time in years. She helped brainstorm business ideas, laughing at my spreadsheets, but proud of the independence. "You're finally doing it your way," she'd say, pouring coffee. Growth came steadily. I hired a part-time assistant virtually, then took on larger projects coordinating seasonal harvests for co-ops that remembered reliable service from the old days. Revenue built without overtime draining me. Evenings stayed free for homework help or movie nights with Kendall. She noticed the change most. "You smile more now, Mom," she said one night while we baked brownies. "And you're here when I get home." That hit deep. I'd spent so long proving worth through endless hours thinking it secured our future. Losing it all in one arrogant decision showed the opposite. Real security came from boundaries, from not letting anyone define your value. Arrogance carries a heavy price, as Marvin learned the hard way. Dismissing someone who kept everything running doesn't make you stronger, it exposes the weakness underneath. He paid with his business, his financial stability, his reputation. But the bigger lesson wasn't about his fall. It was about never again handing over control of my worth to someone else. Self-respect means recognizing your contributions clearly, demanding fair treatment, and walking away when it's denied. No waiting for recognition that might never come. I built this new venture on those terms. Fair contracts, balanced life decisions based on what sustained us long-term. Clients respected the expertise because I respected it first. No more invisibility in someone else's shadow. Kendall grew confident watching it unfold. Jade and I grew closer, sharing the ups without old distractions. The work felt meaningful again, not exhausting. Looking back, that Friday, firing was the push I needed. Painful, yes, but it forced clarity. Your value isn't negotiated by people too proud to see it. It's demonstrated through choices that protect your time, your peace, your future. If you've ever let a toxic situation define your limits, remember this: walking away isn't losing, it's reclaiming what's always been yours. Arrogance costs the arrogant most. Self-respect costs nothing and pays everything.